Alrighty, hello everybody. This is Eric Vierthaler of Vierthaler Studios here once again, back for another episode of Sit Down by the Fire. I'm here with my next special guest. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Mary Muro, and I am in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I don't know what else you want to know. I've been in acting, I guess, on and off for the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years. My undergrad was theater. In the past couple years, I think I've kind of ventured into like film acting.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sharing so much about all that. So I guess my first question, excuse me. So, what exactly got you interested in acting and just theater and film acting?
I've always really just enjoyed it. I think it's that opportunity that you have to actually go in and do something or be somebody that you can't normally be in everyday life. And I think that's what took me into theater and playwriting, and I really enjoyed that. I still get the opportunity every once in a while to do a show here or there. I do a lot of directing usually for children's shows. I'm actually directing a small children's show right now. So I really enjoy that. That's how I still, set by, have that passion and able to continue with that. Within the past couple years, I have tried to dig a little bit deeper and adventure into the film aspect. And since then, I've done a couple of indie movies. I've done a couple of commercials, a couple of print ads, several shorts, a couple little things like that. Um, this past year, though, I know it kind of stopped a little bit, taking a little bit of a breather. My husband passed last fall.
I'm sorry.
And so, thank you. And we did have a family business. And so that kind of left me with family business. And so, like, when we first kind of networked, I kind of talked about, just being that motivational speaker, because I think that's where I find myself a lot lately is just kind of being that motivational speaker and being like, look, I mean, it takes perseverance, it takes resilience. It's just you have to want to. Nothing comes handed, so you just have to work at it.
Certainly, yeah. Like you really hit the nail in the coffin. And yeah, I am so sorry about your loss. I mean, that's a pretty big significantly I mean, that's a pretty big significant life change. And oh gosh, I mean, to lose somebody who you love, oh gosh, I just want you to know like that you have my support, you have my condolences, and yeah, and it's like what Rocky Balboa said. It's not about how hard you get hit, but how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
There you go. There you go. And I think that that's just been a part of it. You know, losing my spouse was the hardest thing that's ever happened. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. I lost my dad last year in March, and 6 months later, I lost my spouse. And it wasn't like, I don't think it matters how long you were ever married or you've been with the person that you love. This is the person that you've committed to. This is the person that you plan to be with for the rest of your life or whatever you may have. And we've been together since we met as kids, and so it was extremely difficult. So we had known each other for about 30 years, and so that was just in itself. It was hard because it was like really never having been independent, never being on my own. This is the person I grew up with. And so just, and it's still hard day to day, when I'm making those rough decisions, it's like, who do I turn to and be like, what do you think? Or where do we go from here? It's learning to be independent. It's learning to be where you're at. And to sometimes be okay. And it's okay sometimes not to be okay, and know that
Yep.
reaching out is okay. And like I said, I was left with the family business, which is an automotive shop at that. So I'm a woman in a man's industry that's taken it completely over now. I was fortunate and blessed that when my spouse was here, he showed me the ins and the outs. I know how to work the back. I know how to sand. I know how to paint. I know how to get in the grime and get dirty. But then I know how to manage the office, and so I think that has really helped. And so I'm trying to reimage. I'm trying to boost the shop and trying to continue with that because that's my legacy that I have left from him. That's what we have to show, and honor him. And hopefully one day this will be my children's and they can go forward. And so it's really rough because then you have these different. I still have another full time job that I have. And I'm also in the acting business. And so it's like, where do you balance and how do you do it?
Exactly, yeah. And and that's one of the complexities about being an adult is all about trying to find that time management skills, like especially when you're in college, because my my first few semesters of college really pushed my time management skills to its absolute limits. And and I kind of feel like that when you go to college, that's what it does, is that it really pushes your time management skills. And sometimes it can be easier said than done, but it's just a matter of how the person does it. And yeah, and I'm also sorry to hear about your other loss too, especially so soon before your you said that it was your husband. But yeah, I'm so sorry about both, but hey.
Yeah, I lost my yeah. Yeah, like I said, and losing a parent is hard. I mean, losing my dad was really hard. But again, when I lost my spouse, that was the hardest thing because that's the person that's with me every single day. And of course, I'm much better now. It's been a year. It was in September when he passed, so it has been now a full year. But I think I've also grown, and I've grown into a new person. I am not the same person I was a year ago. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. And so it's just I don't know. I don't know the purpose. I don't know the why. I just have to continue and know that my purpose is I'm still here. I don't know what it's for, but I will continue and continue to strive and just continue to persevere. I think that that's it.
Exactly, yeah. And knowing that you survived all that, you wanna know what that makes me you wanna know what that makes you? That makes you a warrior. And you should be proud of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, anytime. And yeah, I mean, there have been people in my life like who have been there ever since the beginning, and then and then eventually when they pass. And that's one of the harsh lessons about life, is that knowing that all the people in our life is that eventually that their time is going to run out. And so trying to make the most of all that time that we have with those people. It goes back to what I said about time management. You just got to make the most out of that time that you do have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Certainly, yeah. I am so sorry about all that. But yeah, and I mean, when you said about the perseverance and resilience, I mean, when it comes to pursuing the industry of filmmaking, you really truly have to have both of those.
You do, and you have to have a backbone, and you have to have grit. I mean, you can hear 100 no's before you can hear one yes. And so it is a very tough industry. It's very competitive. I actually got to attend a very great informational workshop over this past weekend where I got to meet Gerald Floudery, the writer and director for Vindication, which is doing very well now. And so just sitting down and listening to what he had to say and being able to talk to him and pick his brain and just kind of knowing like what the next steps are. And some people don't understand that acting is also it's a business. So it's
It is.
also very expensive because you have to continue. This is a craft that you continue to develop. You continue to take classes. You continue to attend workshops. You continue to network, even once you have an agent or a manager. So that's something that sometimes that people don't always realize that it is a lot of work.
It is. It really truly is. But I mean, ultimately, if you really love it, if your heart really truly is into it that much, you will do anything for it.
Absolutely. And my youngest child, is 12, and he is also a child actor and certified in the state of Texas as a child actor. And so that's something that I try to instill in him because he's always out. He has an agent as well, and we're continuously auditioning and trying. And like I said, acting was kind of on this back burner for this past year, but I think that we're at a place where it's like, okay, look, we got to get back into it because we can't sit around and just mope and cry for the rest of our lives. We have to have a purpose. We have to find it and continue. And again, it's always going to go back to how much do you want it? How much do you really want it? Because you have to persevere, and you'll hear so, like I said, you'll hear so many no's before you hear a yes. And just talking to him, and like I said, he's still a kid, so sometimes he doesn't understand, and he wants to go with his friends, and he wants to go ride the bike, or he wants to go do things, and it's like, I understand you're a kid, dude, I get it, but this is, if this is what you want as a career, there's sacrifices that sometimes we have to make.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Like I made sacrifices too, and yeah, and I mean, hearing those no's, it can get very, very discouraging. But ultimately, you just gotta be like the Terminator about it. In the sense, you gotta be unstoppable. And yeah, and reminds me of what happened to me. Uh, Usually, we're told to not even do acting and just do that regular 9 to 5 job instead. Well, that was what I did working at a grocery store. And then my last paycheck was only $56.
Oh, wow.
And then, as you can imagine, you can't survive off of that. And I was doing everything that I could to survive off of that. And I had to call friends, just to help me out on the financial aspect of it. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to live my life like that. And then that grocery store then said, sorry, but we're not going to give you more hours until you've been here for 15 years. I'm like, I'm not going to waste 15 years of my life on that. Screw that. That is such a waste of my time. But, whenever anything goes wrong, the best thing that you can do is learn from it. And the lesson that I took out of that is that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well should go take a chance at doing what you love.
And that is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And I think like everything, I think like every person that comes into your life and every situation you've been in, it has been there, or you've gone through it to teach you something. You know, when you meet a person that comes into your life, they're there to teach you a lesson or something you have to live with them, or something that you have to go through, something you have to learn from them. And so I think that that's with everything in every situation as well, and all the jobs that we've had, all the careers that we've had. I heard the same thing, and when I got very, like, I got married very young, and so my husband was like, no, you cannot be a starving actress. Because that was my undergrad. He was like, well, you actually need to get a job. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went into teaching, which I love as well. I've been in education now for also about 18 years. I'm now an instructional coach with an online public school. And it's something that I also love to do. But right now I'm at a place where I am really contemplating. My children are now older. My youngest is 12, and he's in the same industry, in the entertainment industry. So I kind of really look at it and it's like, okay, where am I? I'm not in the same place I was, 15 years ago, 18 years ago when I started my career. So what do I want to do? What gives, and what do I keep? What gives? Because I know that right now where my career is at in acting, it's not at a place where I can say that I will be substantially financially stable. Maybe as what I know what I am with my career, I know how much I'm making. I have a salary, and I get paid and so forth. And it's that's where I'm at. But it's like, okay, some things have to go, and you have to know when it's time and how bad. We talked about, um, over the weekend in the workshop that I attended, we talked a lot about greed, and greed and pride over everything else, and how not to be greedy in the industry. Because there is, it's kind of like, the sun comes out for everybody, and there's always a little bit for everybody. It is very, very competitive. But again, if you know your skill and you work on your talent and you really evolve, and become the character or the writer or the director that you want, become those actual things, show your value, show your worth. And not everything, I've done a lot of shorts where I don't get paid anything, because it was all about going out there and promoting myself. Like, how do I get out there? How do I network? And that's where you start. I mean, it's not always about making the big paycheck. It's about networking and what you know and how can I learn.
Exactly, yeah. And And yeah, and I mean, like for like the networking thing, and I mean, that's one of the biggest essentials when it comes to the industry and all that. And yeah, and I figured that out very, very early on in my journey when originally I was going to pursue paleontology, but then I failed that in college. And then I met a friend of mine named Vanessa who worked on Jurassic World. And then she was honest. She was like, Eric, you'll be better at filmmaking. And then she and then got me connected to Jim Carrey.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I was very, very happy about that because I've loved him since I was a kid, and he's been a huge inspiration to me. And knowing that that would have never happened if it wasn't for my friend. And so yeah, and I mean, sometimes I feel like that we do need to have those turning points in our lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, networking. It is all about who you know. And
Yep.
but again, it's you put in the effort. So I go to workshops, I go to networking events, and I'm doing my part because that is part of my job. Still, my job is to go out there and network and be happy and be friendly, even if I don't feel like it, even if I just want to be home on my couch and have a lazy afternoon. No, a part of my job and part of this business is being out there networking and getting to know each other and mingling. And it's part like that with everything, every business. I like I said, I also have the family business that I took over. It's the same thing with that. Where I have an automotive or auto body shop, and so it's networking, going out there, meeting dealerships, meeting insurance companies, and being like, who do you use and who do you do this. It's all everything, every business. That's exactly what it is. It's still business, and show business is still that, show business.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, you can have all the talent in the entire world, but if you don't have those connections, nobody will ever know about how talented that you really are. And yeah, and and as far as the networking thing goes, and I mean, sometimes we really need to stop and think. Sometimes we like to, try to prove our point, like when we argue with people, but sometimes we need to think what's more important, being right and getting that satisfaction with that ego boost that you want, or preserving your relationship.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the best things that you can do as a local actor, or actress, is really have that integrity and kind of doing what's right. And when we talk also about not being greedy, it's kind of like, know where your commitments lie, and where you're at. Sometimes you sign on to do a short or a small budget film, with someone local, and another bigger opportunity comes around, but it's like, okay, which would be more detrimental? If you already signed a contract, if you already came into a commitment, kind of like which one, and so we talk about these kind of things because it again, it's about who you know. So if you back out of something that you've already said you committed to, how does that going to affect you? How does that get around? And do you drop that just because you got something bigger? No, maybe, if this was Hollywood calling in and it's a $1 million deal or something like that, or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, well then, that's a wholly different thing. But when you're still talking local, versus, like a commercial that may come in, et cetera, and you just have to really know um, what you're committing to, and just kind of know where your integrity is. So it's kind of like doing the right thing, just knowing what's right morally.
Certainly, yeah, and yeah, and I mean, I mean, especially in the film world, and I mean, just life in general, your reputation is everything, and you must guard it with your life because if you're going to have a bad rep, well, then don't be surprised by your quality of life.
Absolutely. When I go on stage or I go on set, I do not ever try to um, talk over the director or tell the director, and it's like, I can do something different. You want me to do something different? But the director is a director. I am the talent that they've hired. That's what they want me to be. So that is what I am. So making sure not to be stepping over those toes, making sure not to be that diva on set, making sure just to be there and do what I've been hired to do. Because again, it is reputation, and I have become so aware, and just so taken back by how much of a small world it is in the industry. You go to different
Certainly.
mixers. It is like, oh, I just met you at the last event, or you get on set and it's like, oh, I know you from somewhere, or you audition and it's the director like, I didn't even know that you were the director on this film, or whatever it is. And so it's just like it is a very small world, and they all know
Oh, it
each
is.
other.
Exactly, yeah. And then once when word goes around about you, because it is a small world, funny. As soon as I say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is that ride. It's a small world,
After all.
which is funny because even Disney themselves even knows that that song's annoying. It's because there's that part in The Lion King, like where Zazu sings it, and then Scar's like, no, no, anything but that.
Yes,
That is hilarious. But yeah, so anyways, out of all
absolutely.
out of all acting roles you have done, what would you say is your favorite one?
Oh my gosh. Um, I've done some fun ones. I've done some favorite ones. Okay, so I was in an indie film maybe about a year or so, about maybe 2 years ago, year and a half ago. And I was Detective Gallegos on Lady Thug, and I think it's actually out right now on Tubi, by
Awesome.
director Michael Green. And I think that was my favorite character because I got to be kind of like that shady detective, and, got to be a part of the crime, and got to carry my badge and my gun. It was just fun. That atmosphere was really fun. He is a great director to work with. All the actors on set were great. So just making those great connections. I made some great connections. Have made some great friends from there. So I think that was one of my best. Um, and I did a really fun one. I did La Chancla del Diablo. I did that one probably about 3 years ago now. Um, and I think right now that one's in the work for distribution. And that one was a really fun one. I think it's a parody off of like Chucky, but it's with a chancla, so it has that Hispanic kind of twist to it. But that was really fun, just because it was kind of more of like, if you've ever seen the Chucky movies, and they're all kind of gruesome a little bit with all the blood and all of the, it was that kind. And I'm one of the actresses that had the honor, I guess, to be killed by this chancla. And so it was just kind of gruesome. So it was kind of like one of those, like, really just, I don't know, but you imagine like a slasher film, and it's a chancla that comes out. So I'm like all slashed up, and it was really fun. It was a really fun project to work on.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's on Tubi, and yeah, and what I love about Tubi is that you don't have to pay for it, and so and therefore, if you're on a budget, it's definitely very very helpful.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, and you said that film's called what? Sorry.
The chancla del diablo. It's called La Chancla del Diablo, which I guess translates to Satan's sandal.
Interesting.
Yes, it's a parody. Like I said, it's a parody on Chucky. So it's a sandal instead of a doll. But it was a really unique movie to work on. I really, really enjoyed it. I worked with Israel Luna Entertainment, and he's also, oh my gosh, he's a fantastic director. And just really good relationships. My son got to work on that project and was actually one of the leads. So he was just a great director to work with. I mean, I wish I could say more about just how great he was, because he really was. But that was a great experience, and that one is actually right now, I think, in the works for distribution. I think
Interesting. Well,
I think it's the same distributor from what is that, Winnie Pooh, Blood.
oh yeah, you're talking about the Winnie the Pooh horror movie, which is a coincidence
Yes.
because I actually have interviewed some of the people from those movies. Like I had Nikolai Leon on, who played Christopher Robin. I had Louis Santer, who was Tigger. Eddie McKenzie, who was Piglet, and I even had Craig Dowsett on, like who was Pooh Bear in that movie. And yeah, and me and me and but yeah, me and Nikolai Leon, we actually keep in touch on a regular basis. And yeah, never once did I ever imagine that when that movie came out, little did I know that when that trailer came out that I was looking at a future friend of mine.
Yeah, yeah. That's so, and it's so amazing. It's just so amazing making those connections and knowing that, the actors are really, they are just real people. They are real people.
They are, yeah.
Um, yeah. So just making those connections and having those relationships.
Certainly, yeah. And never once did I ever imagine we would get a Winnie the Pooh horror movie.
No, me either. I mean, so that's it's a whole different take. But I'm excited for the things to come. I think there's a lot more coming out. So I'm excited for everything that's coming out. And like I said, I think that is the distribution coming. I think I've heard that it's picking us up. So that's pretty cool. And because it's a more of a Hispanic culture movie, so it's kind of trying to make the debut to the Latin countries.
Awesome. I certainly am very very excited for you. That is pretty
Thank you.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But yeah, when I first heard about that Winnie the Pooh horror movie, I thought that it was just a fan film. But then with all the trailers and posters, I was like, okay, this is a real movie. And I was curious, how are they getting away with this? And I did research. It's because the original book, not the Disney version, the original book by A. Milne went into the public domain. And I'm like, okay, that explains it then. And then of course Steamboat Willie went into the public domain, and what did they do? Turn it into a horror movie.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, and eventually Batman and Superman will go public domain, and I wonder what they're gonna do with that when that goes public domain.
And those are interesting, sometimes I feel like it's taken away of what we remember and kind of like that fairy tale or that kind of childhood
Yeah.
that we had. But at the same time, it's just different. Our audience is different. Society is different. What the generation we have now is much different. So it's all just different perspectives and different perceptions of what we get to see.
Certainly, yeah. And although I certainly do see where you're coming from about, taking away what it originally meant, but the other side of that coin is that it also gives it a new spin, and it makes it interesting for people, which is why that Winnie the Pooh horror movie caught so much attention. It's because that you never would associate Winnie the Pooh being like a bloodthirsty killer in a horror movie. And what may maybe appeal to one certain group of people isn't going to apply to someone else. But I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, you just really truly can't please everybody.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, certainly, yeah. Like when they announced that Mickey Mouse horror movie, The Mousetrap, when I shared it on my Facebook, so many comments saying very unfortunate, while other people were up and excited about it. They're like, yes, a Mickey Mouse horror movie, and so different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to just perception and perspectives and the different likes. Again, this is not the same generation it was 50 years ago or 20 years ago, 30 years ago. There's so much innovation coming in. There's so much has changed, and there's just so much twist on different and dramas and I think that to each their own. I mean, if that gets a certain fan base, then that means that I think that's great. I think we're all here working under kind of the same industry, working for some of the similar goals. So it's just like there's something out there for everybody.
Oh yeah, Cer- certainly, yeah. Like there are some people who love Mexican food, and there's some who don't, and there are some who like soda, and there's some who don't. I mean, me personally, I have soda every now and then. I am trying to lose weight, and so I've been really cutting down on all that. But yeah, and I mean, it's all just about what works best for you.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, and so you also said you did some commercials. Talk about your experience doing that.
Um, I think commercials are I like commercials. personally, I like commercials just because um, I think they pay more, to be honest. And so it's always nice to be like get a nice little check from a commercial. But I've done a couple of commercials. Some have been very local, just for little local companies, and I've done one or two commercials for a couple of different law firms. So
Awesome.
those have just been, I mean, they're pretty short, and like I said, it's a nice little paycheck to get. And again, it is still about networking because you get to meet so many different people, and then just people with the services they provide alone, just meeting people out there in general and networking, not even to say in the industry, but genuinely just meeting people, and knowing, because I think so much now is spent online and on our phones and behind a screen. That's like, when do we actually get out to socialize? And so if that's the opportunities that I get to socialize and get to meet others, I love it. I mean, I've traveled out a little bit just to do different films and so forth. So I've traveled a little bit all over Texas, to be able to do that. And I love it. I mean, there are connections I still make, and I'm not going to say that we're the best of friends and we talk on a weekly basis or so, but we'll check in every once in a while. How are you doing? How's this been? Or I'll have people that I met on a short or a film that will reach back. Hey, I just saw you in a commercial. That's great. I'm glad you're doing great things. And so it's so cool to be able to see that and be like, yes, and just kind of know that you're out there, you're doing things, you're getting recognition, you're getting noticed. Your friends still, I say friends, but the acquaintances you've worked with, they still recognize you, they still know you, and you're still in this circle.
Awesome, yeah, and and I mean, ultimately, it's about getting your name out there, and you're actually the very first person I've ever met, like, who said that you got paid more doing commercials than you did short films or even feature length films, and so that's really interesting.
Now, I will say I enjoy filming. I think I enjoy shorts and feature films and indie films. I think I enjoy those more because you get a character. You get to become that character. You get to analyze the script. I love that type of stuff. But when we're looking at, let's say, for example, my life where it's at right now, because there are actors that are just commercial actors. That's what they do. That's what they want to do. And so just being able to kind of go between both and see what's out there, I think has been great. Because I've also done some print. And so just again, just being able to go out there, I think for what I've done this past year and being able to, because that's what I did. I did a couple the business. I'm trying to find out where I'm at. I can't spend much time away because I have to be here. I also have another job. So it's like, what can I afford to do? Where it was a nice little check. So I was able to go and come and still know I still have a foot in. It's something I still love to do. But then I didn't have so much time. So it's kind of like knowing what I can still do. And it's great. I love filming. I still do background every so often. So whatever I can do, I love doing.
Oh yeah, certainly so. And you know, while it sounds like it's nice, well, like to get that source of income from commercials, but I guess it just depends on if that's what the person wants to do and whatnot. But yeah, from what I've noticed, like with commercial acting versus film acting, it is acting. But I've noticed like that with a lot of commercials, they usually want you to be a lot more subtle about it. While with theater, they want you to be like exaggerated about it, which makes sense. It's because you're on stage and you want everybody in the audience like to be able to feel your emotions and whatnot. But with commercial acting, like you really need to be more subtle about it. Like when I took an acting class earlier this year, the teacher really was talking about commercial acting, and yeah, she was basically saying like just imagine as if you're having a normal conversation with somebody.
I think commercial, it's a little bit over the top. So it is. I think it's a little bit more comparable to theater, because
Okay.
again, most commercials are persuasion. That's what it is. They
Sure.
are
Yeah.
trying to get you, whether they can be informing you, but they're still trying to persuade you either for their services or to buy something. It's market.
Right.
So it's all about marketing. So again, it's a little bit bigger. So I mean,
Okay.
we look at it that way. And in film, you have the time to actually develop a character. So when we talk about my most memorable experiences, it's not going to be the commercial because that was something that's pretty quick. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Great, it was great. But more enjoyable, I enjoyed the filmmaking because that's where I made those long term connections and relationships, etc. And then you touched on theater a little bit, and theater is also much different from film. Most of my
Yep.
experience was theater, and so that's a big jump. It's a big jump. It's something that we're not used to. When I'm on stage for theater, it's kind of like we cheat out. We want to make sure that we never turn our backs. We want to make sure that everything is so big. We got to project. We got to really just be out there and be bigger. And when you're in film, that's not always the case. You have cameras right in your face, like right, literally right next to you. So there's no need. It's always been like we start with the end in mind. So they're always in the films I've been in. It's been my experience. Well, we usually so it's kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, certainly yeah. And it's really interesting that you had a comparison between theater acting and commercial acting because I definitely never thought of it that way before. But it makes sense that you put it that way. And so yeah, and so I certainly do appreciate that.
Yeah, and I know with theater, for me with theater, I get more of an adrenaline rush. It's something like you're on stage. This is live. There are no redos. There is no cut. This is it. This is what you get. So if you drop a line, if you miss a cue, that is what there is. And it's a little bit different with film. With film, you can know going in, oh, we're going to cut, we're going to edit, and they'll fix it in post. They'll do whatever they need to do. And if I didn't like that angle, there is no cut, redo, and action. This is it. It's your one and all.
Exactly, yeah. And that's why, in my own personal opinion, you may or may not agree with this, but I think theater acting is a lot harder considering that you don't get to have those redos. And like if you mess up, you mess up. But if you do mess up, try to make it seem natural. So yeah, like a really good example, even though it's not theater acting, but there's that scene in The Dark Knight, like where the Joker's walking away from the hospital, and then he's trying to explode the hospital. When he pushes that button, that actually was not intended for all that. Like it just didn't go off when it was supposed to. But then Heath Ledger, being an incredible actor that he was, improvised that whole thing. He, he remained in character, and yeah, and then they actually kept that in the final film.
I'm sorry. I just turned off my camera because I could not really hear you. You were kind of really breaking up. So I don't know if it
Oh,
was
I'm
connection or
sorry.
what it was.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either. But yeah, you kind of were breaking up too. So I'm not sure if it's my connection or yours. But yeah, it sounds like that you didn't hear anything that I said. But yeah, if you want me to repeat it, then that's certainly not a problem.
Well, I know, like, I really didn't hear it. I heard that, you said that I had experience with both theater and film, and that's all I got.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fine. But what I was saying is that, in my own opinion, you may or may not agree. But in my opinion, I think theater acting is a lot harder, considering that you don't get to have those redos or retakes and whatnot because once it's done, it is done. And knowing that you have to memorize all of your lines, while with film, like yeah, you have to memorize your lines then too, but at least you have cuts to your advantage. But with theater though, you don't.
Absolutely. I think I share the same opinion. I think, you know, they both have their own challenges, but for myself, I think theater is, it is difficult. It is really hard. From the beginning, first of all, theater is a lot much more commitment than what a film is. And with theater, you're usually rehearsing every day, for at least 3 to 4 hours, and that's, you know, Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday, 3 to 4 hours every day. Just to get your blocking, just to get your scenes down, just to get your cues, just to get your lines memorized. And then you have a date where you're off book. You're not allowed to have your script on stage. And it's like you may be able to call a line here or there, but you know, you really have to get it down. You have to become that character, because there is no, again, there is no redo, there is no filming, there is no, well, we can fix this, we can make you kind of look a different way. In theater, this is what you have. You become that character, and you bet to convince the audience that that is who you are, and you only have a short time to do it. So there is, you know, you got that hook is immediately. So I agree. I think it is, in my opinion, it is a little bit more challenging. But I think that
Oh,
that's why the adrenaline rush comes in so hard when it's theater, because when I go on stage, you know, I still get nervous. And so I tell the kids, my kiddos that I direct, I tell my kiddo, my son, that I was like, you know, I think for me, being nervous is completely normal. I think it's supposed to be. I say, for me, I think when you still get those butterflies, it's because it's something that's still so important to you. And so that's good. I said, be worried about the day that you're not nervous anymore, because then at that point, then I think we have an issue, because that means that this is maybe not your passion. It's not where, you know, it doesn't make you nervous. Then, you know, it's kind of thinking about, you know, if it doesn't make, you know, kind of thinking about that first crush you ever had, and then you finally get to talk to them, you know, you get nervous. And so if you don't have that nervousness anymore, then maybe that's not it.
exactly, yeah. And I can write a whole novel about all these auditions that I went to, and people would say, "Oh, I'm so nervous." But what I respond with, nobody's going to believe in you until you believe in yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's okay to be nervous and still go in and do
Yeah.
your best. That's part of it. You know, we all get nervous because we all kind of anticipate, you know, we're like, you know, am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? You know, we don't know. And that's, I think that's what that nervousness is. It's just kind of knowing, with the anticipation of kind of waiting. It's the waiting game. You know, and I have one director, who I've done a couple of films with, and oh my gosh, the anticipation for his films, oh my gosh, it's, for me, it's terrible, because he does his big reveal on a YouTube. And so that's like, he'll be like, everybody has to log in and live on YouTube, and I'm gonna, you know, that's when I'm gonna reveal the cast. And it's just like, wow, you know, do I really want to be on there and hear, no, you didn't get it, like, you know, no, you know, this character goes to so and so instead of my name. So you kind of, you know, it's just like, again, it's just anticipation.
Oh yeah, certainly, yeah. And I mean, sometimes you will get that feedback for why you didn't get it. Like a year ago, I didn't get a Sherlock Holmes play simply because of my long hair. But then what's ironic is that I then got a William Shakespeare play that's exact same time because of my long hair. And so, you know, and so ultimately it's a double-edged sword. Like you may not be right for one part, but you might be right for some other part.
Yes, and I think that that's it. It's bingo right there, because that is the biggest thing. Sometimes it's the look. If you don't, I mean, you can be a great performer, great and very talented, but again, if you, that look is not, that's not, I need something particular that you don't have, that I'm going to continue to scavenge for that. And so I think that that's just part of it. And so when we talk about that, you know, with you know, beginning actors or kiddos, and you know, when they audition, it's not that you're not good, it's just what I envisioned as a director or the writer. The person that I envision looks like this or has that. And then sometimes that it's vice versa. Sometimes the performance is just so good that this is what I envisioned, but you know, my gosh, they were just so good, I can't. This is where I got to go.
Certainly, yeah. Like reminds me of when they were casting The Lion King. James Earl Jones, sadly, who is no longer with us, may he rest in peace. He was not the first choice, according to my research. I don't know how reliable this source is. He was not the first choice to be the voice of Mufasa. It originally was Sean Connery, but then they decided, well, when I say they, meaning Disney and the filmmakers in general, decided to go with James Earl Jones instead. It's because he had more of that dominant king like voice. It's not
Mm,
anything against Sean Connery. He's a phenomenal actor. I mean, could he have made a good Mufasa? Sure. But if I had to be honest, James Earl Jones really truly was the perfect choice. It's because of that commanding deep voice that he had. Like it really was perfect like for a king. So yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also originally James Earl Jones wasn't going to be the voice of Darth Vader either. It was going to be David Prowse, like who played the physical role. And from my understanding, they were going to use David Prowse's voice, but it just wasn't intimidating enough. Then they found James Earl Jones.
Yeah, and all of that's interesting, and I think that that's where kind of our world has gone, to all the different voice actors and voice and voiceovers and voice workshops, because you see so much of that also in the industry, and even that is so competitive now.
Certainly, yeah, and and sadly, that's one of the big things that I hear for why people get discouraged about pursuing acting is that it's so competitive. But to that, I say, learn to adapt to it like a chameleon.
Absolutely. And I think that, again, it's all about how much do you want it? Everything, you have to have a drive. You have to have something that motivates you. What is it? And I think, maybe when I was younger, first starting out, about 20 years ago, when I hear a no, okay, that's so discouraging. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just hurting myself. I'll never be great. I can never do this. I never get chosen. Again, it's also the way you carry yourself. Carry
Certainly, yeah,
yourself like you are it, like you are the boss. You got this, because sometimes it's that confidence and you just lack a little bit of something. You need to be able to believe in yourself before anybody else will believe in you. And that you got to know that. You have to know your worth and your value. Go out there, do what you do, go be your best, do things on your own. Be accountable, take ownership in your career, especially in this industry, because that's nobody else is going to do that. I mean, again, and it's great if you have an agent, it's great if you have a manager, it's great if you have all of these things, but again, this is your career. And ultimately your agent works for you, your manager works for you. This is your career. Don't sit on the sidelines and try to get anybody else to grow you. That is your job.
exactly, yeah. And when I had Lewis on, like who played Tigger in Blood Honey 2, I asked him what is his advice like for anybody who wants to pursue acting, and he said, "Yeah, I mean, you just got to get going. You just got to keep going. Like it's a race, and and when you're in a race, you can't just stop. You just got to keep on going."
Absolutely, and I think that there's always a place to start. Whether it's when I first got my son. My son did a lot of theater stuff, and he's been acting since he was 5. But when he first started, it was mostly theater. When he said he wanted to venture into film, I took him to become a background extra because I wanted him to see how much work was involved. Let's do an extra. Be on set. What does that feel like? Is this something you really want to be around? Do you want to be around all these cameras? Do you want to be on this where it's like cut, stop, don't stop, go back, redo, redo, redo. And these were long, long days. I mean, I think the first time we were on set, he was there for like 10 hours. And so I said, this is part of it. Is this something that you want? Because if it's not, then we can just walk away and you can be a average child and go play, and I'll put you in a sport and we'll go maybe twice a week. But if this is what you want, it takes a lot of perseverance, it takes training, and it's work. And this is what he wanted. So he's been an extra in a couple of different little films and so forth. But then from there it was like, no, I want to audition, I want to be able to do stuff. And again, like I said, he's been he was in a indie film where he got to be a lead. He's in several shorts. He's done a couple commercials. But
Awesome.
again, this is what his passion is. And so it's like, okay, well then we need to take acting classes and go to workshops. And so even if you can't afford, like I said, it is expensive. So if you can't afford that, look it up. I mean, YouTube is free.
It is.
Google is free. Look up whatever you can look up, learn about it, breathe it, become it. Study movies, study your favorite actor. What is their niche? What is their niche that they do? What is something that makes them who they are? How do they take those characters? Look at a movie that you feel like, oh, I could have done that. Why? What is your dream? Where do you want to be? Ultimately, have a goal set out. A long-term goal and then a short-term goal. Like, how many auditions do I want to do this year? But ultimately, where do I want to end up? just kind of know that. So like I said, I think it's an expensive career. I mean, acting is pretty expensive. Thinking about everything that we have to do with having headshots and workshops and trainings and ongoing, because it is ongoing. You continue to learn and perfect your craft. But even at the beginning, if you don't have enough for a headshot, take a really nice selfie that you can start sending out to small local directors who are looking for stuff. You can find so many things on Facebook. People are needing, extras or people for a short film. And they're not always really real professional yet. They're just starting. So, reaching out to them, being like, I don't have a lot of experience, but I would love to get experience. And that's what I did with my son when he was younger. I started emailing directors, interested in being on a film, not really having a lot of experience, more theater than anything else, but he would love to be an extra. He would just love to be on set. He would just love to observe. And that's just the way to get yourself in.
Certainly, yeah, and so you mentioned favorite actors. I'm just curious, who is your favorite actor?
Oh my gosh. Um, I don't know. I think there's so many great actors out there, but I think that one that comes to
Sure.
mind immediately is uh, Jack Black.
Amazing
He's just
choice.
yeah, he's just one of my favorites. Just one of my favorites. I think he can take his characters really. They really become him. So just I just love the way he acts. And then I have like like I watch a lot of like old shows and stuff like that. But like if I go back, like Lucille Ball was one of my favorite actresses from the I Love Lucy series, and it's really not just because of the I Love Lucy. It was just her story overall. I encompass her story. It was just great. She got kicked out of acting school in New York. She was told she would never be an actress. It's not something she would be ever be good at. And to knowing how far she went and having her own franchise and having her own studio, especially as being a female in that time in that era. So just I admire so many different people.
Certainly, yeah, and it's a coincidence that you mentioned Jack Black because when I had Eddie McKenzie on, who was Piglet, he said that he was a big Jack Black fan too, and so so I just feel like that, with where my show's at now, I just feel like that there have been like a lot of callbacks, and then when you said that Jack Black's your favorite actor, it was a callback like to when I interviewed Eddie. So
Yeah, and again, I think that there's so many great actors out there to really just pop one out. I think that there's so many out there that do such a great job. You look at Joaquin Phoenix and his role right now, uh, and his performance. Like, oh my gosh! Like, again, it's like really becoming. It's again, it's empowering. It's really taking that character and really just becoming that awe. But again, that you have to kind of look back. A lot of these actors that we see out there have been doing this, oh my gosh, for so many years, that by the time they get to where they're at, they've had so much time to perfect their talent, or to be able to continue and to still continue to see that grow and continue to see um, overall just how they encompass their character.
certainly, like it goes back to what you said. You just really got to work on your craft and understand it, learn it, and of course network with people, and and of course and the great thing about actors is that all of them like will have like different pieces of life advice, and some of them will give you such profound life advice, and that's one of the reasons why that Jim Carrey is one of my favorite actors, is because not only is he such a talented thespian, but he's also a very inspirational person too. Like some of the things that he has said, I don't know if you've heard any of the things that he has said, but it really makes you think very profoundly about life.
I don't have a particular phrase I can remember that he has said. I know I do love his acting though. He is a great actor, a great comedian. I think it takes a really special person to be able to take the characters he has and become them the way he has. Um, I don't think everybody can pull that off. So I think that him alone is great. Another very inspirational actor is Keanu Reeves. He is just on one of my top list because he's just, I think, so humanitarian. his way to do things, and so many charities that he's been involved with. And he's had some pretty tough things in life and had a lot of different life challenges and tests. So I think that he's also on one of my top actors.
So yeah, you unfortunately cut out when you said their names. So you were
Oh,
talking
Canoe
about
Reeves.
who? Sorry.
Canoe Reeves.
Oh yeah. Him, yeah. Yeah, and also what I've heard about, them, I've heard that they are one of the nicest people you will ever meet.
I have too, so that's for me. That's my inspirational actor right there, because I don't know how much humble or humanitarian you can be. He's pretty high status, and for him to kind of just be mingling with the locals, and just it's not about appearance. It's about who he is, and I think that I admire that greatly.
Certainly, yeah, and just knowing that he's at where he's at, but yet he never allowed any of that to get to his head, and he never allowed that to make him egotistical. He never allowed that to make him a belligerent person, but rather instead he shows so much humility, and that's one of the reasons why that I respect him so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, like I said, I mean, if I have to pick, there's just so many different actors, and I kind of pinpoint them for different things. I admire Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman has been acting, I don't know, several years, but he didn't really become into his own until the late 40s. And so when you think about that as well, it's just like, but again, it goes back to perseverance. Because had he stopped 10 years, 5 years before, and said, you know what, I'm at an age where I can't be doing this anymore. I need to be serious. I need to do something else. Then, where would we be, without Morgan Freeman? And so it's kind of just like, it's just, and, he's not the only one. There are several actors, and not just actors. We look all around, and we look at, oh my gosh, we look at so many different people. Um, but we look at Dr. Seuss, the child author who was told that he could never write a book, he would never be able to, and so he went out and did his own. We look at Disney, Walt Disney, who started off as what was it, a journalist, and was told that he would never amount to anything. It wasn't something he'd be able to do. And just being
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to continue because I'm bigger than that, or I have more dreams that I want to be able to do. And it's okay. Not everybody's going to agree with you. And if that person is not it, just like if it's your agent or your manager and they may not be it, you may have to look for an agent. You may have to look for a manager. Again, it's you. You can't stand there and let someone else hold you back. These are your dreams, your ambitions, your goals.
It, exactly, because one of the things that Jim Carrey said is that people will try to limit you, but what matters is that you do not limit yourself.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And but that goes back, you like that, and that goes back to the very beginning. You have to have backbone. You have to have grit. You have to know where you're at, and you have to be willing to know what you will sacrifice and what you will not, and kind of where you lie, where's your integrity, and what you're willing to do.
Certainly, yeah.
So I mean,
Certainly.
because it's you don't want to lose who you are, or your integrity, or your moral values, just because you get an opportunity. Well, I mean, is that something you're willing to do? Some you may not, but again, just know who you are, know what your worth is, and what your value is. Because also, one thing I'll say is, once it's out there, it's out there.
Certainly, yeah. Like you were talking about how like people will go through things just to get it. I mean, from what I heard, Dwayne Johnson, before he made it big, he only had $7 in his name.
Yeah, and he's who else is this? Is it Steve Harvey? I think it's Steve Harvey who has shared his stories very similar, to where he was down to the last like 15 bucks, and that's all he had, and he was out to go do a comedy show. That's all he had. He had decided he was giving up. That was going to be his last show that he was performing, because he was living in his car. And you hear these stories, and how like that was the night. That's the night you get signed. That's the night someone sees you and says, I want you, I need you. So you just never know. But again, it goes back to where, okay, do I really want to be here, or do I wish I was just sitting at home chilling on my couch watching a movie? I've had a long day, I've had this, I've had that, or I'm just giving up, I'm throwing in the towel. No, you got to continue, you got to really thrive, you got to try.
Exactly. Yeah. Like going back to what we were talking about earlier, about getting all those no's and then eventually getting that yes. That happened to me. A lot of people were telling me no, and it got discouraging. But then finally, eventually, I landed on someone who said yes. And then once you land
Mhm.
on that yes, like once you land on what it is that you're aiming for, it makes you feel that much more good about it. Like it's like, yes, I overcame all of that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and just like, like basically it's just like the hero's journey in the Hollywood formula. Like the more and more you bring down your main character with their character arc, the greater their arc will be.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. So I agree. And again, so again, and I think that you're never too old to pursue your dreams either. I think
Certainly.
that's something that I'm trying to get used to now. Like I said, I started in theater several moons ago, when I was in college. And I had a family, I had my children, I did all of the mom stuff, I did the Girl Scout stuff, I did the softball stuff, I did all of that. I sat on the benches, watching all these sportiness activities. I did all of that stuff. So when I decided to get back into it, it's like, okay, so now I felt like I was a good parent. I did what I needed to do, but now it's my turn, and now I get to go out. Now I get to audition. Now I just get to live a little bit. And like I said, I still have a child, but I was very fortunate. God knew what I needed. Very fortunate that he likes the same things I do. He's into the same crafts and the same industry. And actually, he's what kind of pushed me back into it, because I was content, I guess, just kind of directing every once in so often, just doing a show here and there, not really anything. But when he started inquiring about, well, when can I do this? I want to do that. Can I do this too? And so, kind of getting him in and being like, you know what, if he's going to do this and I can do this, I started going with him and auditioning for shows that I knew he could be in with me. So we did things like Tom Sawyer, like Christmas Carol, the very, very best Christmas ever. We did stuff like that I knew that he could be in with me. And then we did some couple background stuff together, and then just auditioned for films together and just started doing things that I knew he could do with me. And so it was like, okay, we got this. I'm like, I do my own stuff sometimes, and then he does his own. And we kind of training him as well, and making sure he gets what he needs so he can also grow up, and have all of these tools in his belt.
Certainly, yeah. And a really, really good example of how it's not too late. Tobin Bell, who is best known for playing Jigsaw in the Saw movies, he started acting, as far as I can tell, in his 40s. And then he didn't make it big until he played Jigsaw in the original Saw until he was in his 60s. In his 60s was when he finally made it. And, and that's proof that it's not too late. As long as you're still alive, you still have that chance, because the only time when it is too late is when you are dead.
Absolutely, I think that's it. It's when you are no longer here, or you've decided to give up on yourself. So I think that's just it. You hit that right on the head.
Certainly, yeah. And even Sarah Karloff, the daughter of Boris Karloff, who I've had on my show, her father didn't make it until he was in his 40s, like when he did the original Frankenstein. And even Bela Lugosi, I had his granddaughter on. Bela was 49 when he finally made it playing Dracula. 49.
Yeah, but that's where you go back. You go back to realize, just because it's the first time you've seen this actor, or it's you see these really big actors now. Everybody has a starting point. You got to go back and do some research. So when I say, look at your long term goals, who would you aspire to be like? But then go back and do the work. Go back and look at the research. Go back and see where they began, because I promise you, it's not all a walk in the park. There are some very humble beginnings here. There's some really treacherous waters to walk. And so you gotta look at that and be willing to, and just, as long as you're willing to and you have that thrive, then there's nothing that can stop you.
Certainly, yeah. Going back to what I said, you just got to be the Terminator, be unstoppable about it, because ultimately, the only one who's going to stop you is well you.
Right, right.
So yeah, so certainly, but yeah, you hit the nail right on the coffin there. But yeah, we have mentioned horror movies a few times, and I'm just curious about your own opinion. Are you a fan of horror films?
Yes and no. I do like horror films. I like the occasional scare, but I don't like really like gory films or films that have a lot of like when you look at the films like I'm trying to think, like The Exorcist and stuff like that, that just kind of really give me the heebie-jeebies. I was like, I don't want to watch that. But I do like scary movies. I like horror films. I like all of the Halloweens are my favorite. So all the Michael Myers, that's going to be right now. That's the season we're in. So I love all of those horror movies. I think those are classics. So
Uh-huh.
I like those. I've watched, growing up, we saw all of the Chucky things. So I think it's just we have new films out there. Trying to think of something more recent. I don't
Uh,
know, but yeah,
Terrifier.
I do enjoy. Which
But
one?
yeah, the Terrifier films.
I haven't seen those.
They are brutal, especially Terrifier 2. And Terrifier 3 is coming out. From what I've heard, Terrifier 3 is going to be even more brutal than the second movie. I'm like, that's saying a lot because Terrifier 2, oh gosh, that was brutal.
Yeah, no, so I do. I enjoy an occasional horror film. I do. I really like them. I like them over the sappy kind of romantic movies. I don't really like those. It's like, what is this? What is this? Give me something that really is going to make me, you know, like something that's going to make me squirm or something like that.
Well, if you want something that's going to make you squirm, definitely watch the Terrifier movies. And they're both on Tubi. And if you have Peacock, I'm pretty sure that they're on there too. At least as of recording this.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, Terrifier 1 and 2, they are both on Tubi, and I'm sure they're on Peacock. Well, at least as of recording this video.
Ooh,
But yeah, if you're
okay.
ever curious about them,
I'm gonna look those up. I haven't seen those.
but yeah, it's about like this killer silent clown named Art the Clown, and at one point I got to that point where I was like, there have been so many killer clown horror movies. I'm like, what else can they really do with it at this point? But then along came Terrifier, proved me wrong that yes, there are more things to do with killer clowns and horror movies. And oh boy, they come like Art the Clown. A lot of people are in agreement. Art the Clown has become the new horror icon.
Okay.
Say what? Sorry. Could you repeat that? Sorry.
I said maybe I'll look that up. But I think I know I'm not a fan of clowns, but I'll look at it and see where it takes me.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, people have been demanding for more original content, and a lot of people I've met have said that they're tired of remakes, sequels, prequels, and reboots and whatnot. So if you're one of those people, well, then the Terrifier movies might be for you because it's a new original horror movie franchise, and yeah, in my opinion, I think Art the Clown is scarier than Pennywise.
Okay, okay. See, I do like Pennywise, so I like it. So maybe I'll look at it. I'll look at it.
Okay, but yeah, just be warned, the Terrifier movies, they're not for the faint of heart. Absolutely not.
Okay. All right.
Especially this infamous scene in Terrifier 2. Once you see Terrifier 2, then you'll know what I'm talking about.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah, like if you thought the Hostel movies and the Saw movies were brutal, wait until you see the Terrifier movies.
Okay, that lets me know where we're at because I don't watch a lot of the Saw. I think I watched maybe one or two, and after that, I was like, oh, they're pretty gory, and so I'll look and see where we're at.
Okay, well, yeah, and I mean, it's definitely good to know that you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, because that's
absolutely.
what happened to me when I saw the Human Centipede for the first time. Because my
Oh,
my friend Kenny told me about it in high school, and he was saying, "Oh, that movie was nasty." When he said nasty, I thought he meant like super gory, and I thought it was gonna be about some half human, half centipede monster that attacks people. So then one day I saw it on Netflix, and I got curious about it because of what Kenny was telling me about it. Then I saw the movie. I was like, "Oh, that's what he meant by nasty."
yeah, it's disgusting. That's what it is. I sat through the whole thing. I watched the whole thing. Why? I don't know. But once I was watching it, I was like, I need to see. I needed to see what was going to happen. I wanted to see how it was going to end. But yeah, that's a very perturbing memory. It's stuck. It's imprinted in my brain. Yeah, I can't get rid of it. Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's one of
not
those
good.
movies. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's one of those movies and concepts where once it's in your head, you'll never get that out of your head. Like it will forever, like be it will forever will be a part of your psyche.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, and then they made a second movie and a third movie, and the first
Nope.
movie definitely raped every bit of innocence that I had left in me.
Yeah, I didn't watch the other ones. After I saw that one, I was like, no, there's no need to watch anything else.
A lot of other people I've met have said the exact same thing, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely not for everyone. And did you ever see the South Park parody?
I did not.
It was really funny.
I did not. I might go look that up. No, I didn't see that one.
But yeah, it's called the Human Centipede.
Human centipede. Okay.
But yeah, and even Tom Six, who was the director of it, he was like, "Yeah, I guess you can say that you made it big when South Park does a parody of something that you created."
I guess so. I guess that's the way to take it.
Certainly, yeah, and funny because I was just after I saw the movie, I was just curious like how the director came up with it. And according to research, he was watching something about pedophiles on TV, and he was saying to people who he was watching was saying that they should torture those pedophiles by attaching his mouth to a fat truck driver's butt, and then everyone screamed at that. And then he was like, okay, that should be the concept of a horror movie.
Oh wow. Wow.
But
Interesting.
yeah, so yeah, it is interesting. And
Alrighty.
yeah, I
Well,
will
thank you so much for having me on. I do want to leave
certainly.
you. I do. I was going to say I wanted to leave you with a very insightful phrase, or at least a quote for me that
Okay.
kind of like something that I kind of stand by. It's a quote by Vince Lombardi, but he always
Okay.
talks. One of his favorite quotes is the difference between a successful person and the others. It's not the lack of strength and not the lack of knowledge, but rather the lack of will. So it's not, and so I think that that's the biggest thing in everything we do. Like I said, I've been in education for about 18 years, and it's something I always tell my kids. I always have that up, and I'm like, this is what I live by. Because again, it's not about how successful you are or but what it's about how much you're willing to continue and to really try.
Certainly, yeah. I mean that's spot on. But usually with this podcast, I will end it with the final question. Is there anything that you want to plug in?
Um, I think that was it. Again, I think it's perseverance, 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 not to give up. We are put through so much, and it's just sometimes it's just part of life. Life is life, and life is not always fair, and life really sometimes is crappy and it sucks. But you have to continue. And like I said, sometimes you'll have 100. no's before you can get that one yes. But believe in yourself and know your worth and your value.
Certainly, yeah. But yeah, while I certainly do appreciate that answer, I more so was curious about, is there any upcoming like movies you're a part of or commercials or anything like that?
Right now, I think I'm, like I said, I'm just, I took a little bit of time off, so I think I'm barely started to where I want to get back in.
Okay.
I've started a little bit, just auditioning. I do have an agent, so it's just kind of like, okay, so now I'm back in. Now I'm 100% in. Like I said, I went to a wonderful workshop over the weekend, tips and tricks and perfecting auditioning techniques, and I'm just excited to kind of just jump right back in, and just excited to see where I'll be within the next year.
Awesome. Well, I certainly wish you the best of luck on all that, and I just want you to know that, and I just want you to know that you have my support, and I certainly will be there to cheer you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
Yes, of course, and it certainly was wonderful to have you on my podcast. You have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
See you later.